acknowledges the standards of the country, which always was and always will be Aboriginal land. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and waters, show respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We are committed to providing places in which Aboriginal people are included socially, culturally, and economically through thoughtful and collaborative approaches to our work. Okay, so just the Zoom protocol. We've got here, look, because there's so few of us, really I'm happy for you to just interject at any time, either through the chat or verbally, it's fine. Okay, so the panel. So we've got, was it Rihanna and Heather there? So it's only you guys, the only two people sitting in the exam who are on here, but just for your benefit, so you know exactly who the panel's made up of. So it's myself, Xavier Hill, as a convener. We've got Chris Hamilton, who's out there at Tritton's, the mining manager. We've got Chris Hiller, who's a mining consultant. Clive, who around you know, out there at Peak as the mine manager. We've got Giorgio, who's the GM of, he's now moved up to being the expert of exploration and strategy at RASP. And finally, we've got Jason, who's very gratefully decided to be on the call here today just to see how it all goes. So we've got a really good panel and that we can draw upon to develop the questions and to develop the process. Okay, so what's the purpose of this briefing session? Well, it's just to provide an overview of the examination process to you guys, and so we can prepare you guys as best we can for the exam. So we're going to go through the actual application process. It is a little bit involved, so we're just going to go through that if you haven't actually completed it yet. Unfortunately, because I think there's 14, Angeline might correct me, but I'm pretty sure it's 14 competencies all up we deal with as a regulator. And we are by far the smallest of all those competencies. So as a consequence of us being the smallest, we sort of straddle the end of the year process. So that means that we're at a bit of a difficult time to assess the applications, etc. So, but the good thing is because there's so few applicants, we do have a bit of flexibility around, you know, we can call you individually and try and work through your application if there's a few bugs in it. We're just going to go through, what you can expect in both the oral and the written. We'll take your guidance after the written. We're happy that we have run in the past a separate briefing session for the oral, and if there's demand for it and you guys want another briefing session ahead of the oral, happy to provide it to give you any further clarity or just as a reminder of what's going to be covered in the oral. We're not going to go too much through the examination techniques. We're more just going to talk about the types of questions you're going to be asked and the thinking as to why we ask them and what really we're looking for. We will go through the type of ledge that we're going to go through. Hopefully, you guys already know the ledge that we're going to discuss, so that's a bit of a redundant topic, but there are a couple of little guidelines and codes that could be covered as well. The types of questions and what we expect in the answers. So we've got our website. Hopefully you guys have been to all that yet. I suppose the main one, there's a lot of stuff on there, and I don't want to overwhelm you all. The main thing really I'd recommend you guys do is look at past papers. We've been on a journey around the blueprinting. We'll talk about that a little bit, but I've simplified that a lot. I don't, because it is pretty complicated. It's a lot to read, and frankly, you're better off learning the legislation than trying to read all these documents, because there are a lot there. But the main ones really go through the past exams and then go through the actual application process. And in that, it describes all the requirements. It sets out very clearly what the prerequisites are to going to actually sit your ticket, and then what you actually need to provide in your portfolio. So they're really the main aspects. There's also, we'll cover off later as part of, in addition to the legislation and the codes, is things like the MDGs and the TRGs. You want to be able to familiarize yourself with that as well. Just for everyone's benefit too, you get a PDF version of this presentation today, so you can go back through and click on all the links and explore all this yourself. So yeah, the prerequisites, they're laid out in our documents on our website. But the main ones, you have a Bachelor of Mining Engineering from, it says here, an Australian university, but basically any university that satisfies the Washington Convention. If you have it from any other type of tertiary institution, Govern has come out publicly and stated, please just come to us, and we're always happy to entertain any sort of exemptions if you can demonstrate you've got a recognised degree from a university, and we can go and investigate whether we'll accept it or not. But we're more than happy to entertain one-off type situations like that if the institution you went to is not a signatory to the Washington Convention. The other option, of course, is through the Advanced Diploma of Metalliferous Mining. It's done through an RTO, so I think that's the RI 6120. So you need a minimum of 5 years experience, a minimum of 3 years being present basic on a mining operation. And they talk here about the extraction, 1 year at the extraction phase. But essentially, we want to be able to demonstrate to us that you've done at least a year working underground, and that you've done some some drilling time, blasting time, preferably both development and stoping, stope charge up, and some haulage, service crew. So they're the main things. We then look for 2 years of a supervisory role, and that can really be anything. Hopefully, you've done some shift supervising. It'd be good and ideal, but any sort of supervision of a project and people, you think, oh, here we've got another addition. Toby, welcome aboard. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm hoping you can hear. If you can, just confirm in the chat, please. But we haven't really covered off too much. We're just talking about the application process and the prerequisites. So, yeah, minimum of 5 years experience all up. Now, in addition, you also have to complete the emergency preparedness qualification. So this is the RIERR 61E. So establish and maintain mine emergency preparedness and response systems. And you do that through an RTO. Portfolio. So this is okay. Yep. Heather, please, if you've got a question, please raise it with me. Oh, yes.
Yes. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. I just wanted to clarify, I guess, that emergency preparedness course. I don't know if it's a new prerequisite or the understanding around the units that are superseded. The G3 course, just coming from more of a Queensland background,
Sure.
and having, I guess, that accreditation, and trying to also, I wanted to understand, would that be a course that would, I know it's an equivalent for that RIEE 601D, whether that would be recognised as an equivalence. I just struggled to find an RTO that offers that specific course in time to do my application. I actually haven't found one in New South Wales that is available to do it.
Yeah, you're raising an excellent point. Look, if you've already completed one of those, one of the superseded units, I think we'll accept that. Can you just please just give it to us in an email? Our email address, the email address of the competency units in there. You can have mine as well, but yeah, we definitely want you to. We don't want that to be the reason why you don't sit the course. Heather. Sorry, the sit your ticket. Yeah, no. Please, just send it to an email, and we'll get to the bottom of it. The good thing about the fact that there are so few applicants in our world, we happily entertain sort of unique situations or exemptions, etc. We're happy to entertain them as long as they're reasonable. So please just put it in writing to us, and we'll get it sorted.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay. The portfolio. Look, I think all this, guys, you guys can pretty easily develop. just show us a copy of a risk assessment you've been involved in the past 3 years. I don't think that should be a drama for anyone. Workplace inspection. So you guys will be doing this, definitely likely on a weekly, if not a daily basis. Review of principal hazard management plan. For you guys that aren't in New South Wales, obviously it doesn't have to be a principal mining hazard management plan as in what you have in New South Wales, but a review of, say, how you ground control management plans, or your dust and airborne contaminant management plans, something that sort of aligns with what we have here in New South Wales, will happily accept. A shift handover report. I mean, that could simply be a report with your crossing, any sort of crosswing that you deal with. Just it's more so this aligns with the shift supervisor's course from here in the underground metal space, and also the way the deputies' tickets work, etc. within coal. So just some sort of handover report you do with crosswings or colleagues. So any workplace training program, may include mentoring or coaching, evidence of a WHS related training program in a mining related field that you were involved in developing or delivering for workers. So that can be as simple as any sort of toolbox talks, etc. Internal presentations you've given internally. It could be something from major vent upgrade to changes in the haul road design, or whatever it is, some sort of address you've done internally. Finally, a safe work procedure or related document or standard setting a copy of a safe work procedure. Saying itself twice. Or related standard, related document or standard setting, work instruction, work order that you've actioned at your mine. So basically, all that is some sort of workplace procedure that you've helped develop and you've been involved in. So if you can provide that, I don't think really the portfolio is going to be too much of a challenge for any of you guys to do. Important things to remember. So, read the guide. Ensure your practical experience includes the relevant areas of experience as per the prerequisites. Ensure you get access to the resource regulator portal in time to make your application. So the other thing I'd say there with the experience components, please just get someone with a statutory ticket. I appreciate we're dealing with people internationally or definitely in a state. That's totally okay, but please get the person who signs off on that experience to be the actual statutory ticket holder. That would be our strong preference. We're always happy to entertain, again, if you can't get a hold of that particular person, they've moved on out of the business or whatever, we'll always entertain exemptions, but really make an effort. That has been an issue for us previously. Ironically, there's enough contacts here internally with us. We've actually managed to get signatures of people's previous managers, because here internally within the regulator actually knows who the manager is and where they are currently. So just come to us with it if you've got any issues. Be committed, complete all parts of the form, have your certified documents ready, pay application fee online, facility. Hopefully you've done all that. That should work pretty straightforwardly on the website. And I said we've already spoken about the referees for the practical experience components. Be responsible. So check your emails. You will get notifications to keep you up to date. Talk about passwords. I think it's all got cookies and stuff on there, so that should all work pretty well. Payment must be made to submit your application. And email or post originals to keep a copy for your records. Right. Okay, so the actual application. So it's a bit of a tough time. Like obviously we're in the Christmas period. Just for all you guys. So I think my last day is I think it's the 16th of December, and I'm away till the 9th of January. So me personally, I'm away in terms of evaluating competencies or evaluating your experience and that it satisfies our requirements. So it is a little bit of a difficult time. I'd suggest that you try and get your applications done. I mean, as I said, I'm off over the 16th, but if you can get them done by the start of next week at the latest, would probably be best. Look, if I get back and you don't get it, you get you get your submission in on the 27th of December and there are issues with it, we can sort it out in January, but ideally the sooner the better, if we can sort out any issues. So the written exam's on the 7th of February, and then the oral exam closing date, so that starts on the 7th of March, and then the oral exams will be on the 4th of April. And then our second round of orals, it's on the 9th of August and then the 20th of September, we'll actually hold the exams. So we've got the link there for you. We also recommend you subscribe to Mine Safety News. It's got all the details of what's going on, plus in the regulator. Yeah, so all the applications are done via the portal. So we don't accept anything via paper now. It's all done via the portal. Our preference is to have all correspondence done via the portal as well. But if you need any help, you've got the phone number there. Again, just write it down, and you'll get a copy of this as a PDF. So please just, you'll have the PDF there with all these details anyway. But reach out to the competency unit if you get stuck. So yeah, after registering, you'll be contacted via email to confirm your identity. So we'll do all those identity checks. This is briefly showing the login process. It'll make more sense to you when you actually go and do the application. So I'll let you, as I said, you'll have this PDF you can follow along when you go to do it. Main thing is, yeah, you need to be a minimum of 21 years of age. Please include your academic requirements, so the transcripts, copy of the award, etc. The portfolio we've already discussed, and the experience we've already discussed. And then I think that answers Heather's question. We will accept a previous version of that emergency preparedness course. So we've already discussed the experience component, and we've already discussed the portfolio. Just to recap, yeah, for the ID, to certify your ID, you need a JP to do all that, and also to certify any copies of your tertiary qualifications. Yeah, complete your. There is actually a sample there on the. You can link this link there to how to document your practical experience. Yeah, pay the application fee via Eventbrite link. Tick applying for a practicing certificate and a declaration at the end of the application. Attach your portfolio of documents at the end of the form. So this will all make sense when you actually go through the form, obviously the online form, and register for your exams. So that must be done by the closing date. So if there's issues in your application, we can sort that out later, but that 27th of December date's a hard date. So at least have the application in. Yeah, so new applicants can register for the exam after submitting an application. So there you go. So registering for the exam, so you fill in the required form, say what it is that you want to do, say which exams, and then the type research exam. So yeah, you'll have to, if you do need to do a research, you'll need to pay an additional application fee. This is just straight off our website, but just going through the dates that we've already discussed. After submitting your application, reviewed, yeah, of all these things we've already discussed. So requests for further information or clarification will be sent. So yeah, this may happen. Like I think it probably happens in half of cases, and it's just tidying up bits of mainly the experience if it hasn't been clearly stated what you've done. And the main issue we've really run into actually has really been the sign off. That has actually been signed off by the correct person, or sometimes it hasn't been signed off at all. So that's really the main aspect that we probably run into with the applications. And yeah, if you need to withdraw, you can withdraw your application via the portal. So your competency, so how's your competency assessed? Well, first, your qualifications, that's obviously assessed, and your industry experience and your performance of industry tasks, i.e. the portfolio. So those three aspects are all just assessed before you have to worry about sitting the exam. Legislative knowledge. So I think we might have one or two guys that they've passed their written, haven't done the oral yet. So just for you guys, we've changed that now slightly with the oral. So we're not assessing any legislation at all in the orals. It's just dealt with in part A of the exam. So it just makes things a bit easier. In saying that, and I will talk about this a little more, but if you give an answer in your oral or in part B, which isn't covering the legislation, but if you give an example, or you answer something that is just so contrary to the intent of the legislation, then we will still fail you. So, for example, you have an incident on site, you have a truck rollover and someone's trapped and seriously injured, and you answer, well, I will cover it all up and make sure not to tell anyone in the resources regulator that this has happened and keep it all hushed up. Something ridiculous like that. Obviously, we would still fail you because you're not satisfying the intent of the ledge. So, yes, you're not being assessed directly against the legislation, but if you fail to satisfy the intent, we will fail you. I think you get where I'm coming from on that. Yeah, so the technical and legislation aspects, it's part B, and it's also in the oral. The old ant aspects, that's basically the oral. It's the old ant aspects, how you manage certain situations, which is a big part of the blueprinting. If you've gone and read that yet, basically it's the old ants associated non-technical skills. Just for you guys and a bit of history, it's probably worth knowing this as mine engineers. We as a resources regulator, we underwent a lot of changes after the Gretley fatality in 1996. Out of that came the RAN review, and in that RAN review, it called for the need for associated non-technical skills with people holding statutory positions. And so there's, I guess a lot of this is written in blood, and the need to actually test people that they understand these human sort of competencies. So if you're deemed competent in your oral exam, an email will be, the result will be come via the portal. And so, yeah, so if you've deemed competent in your written, then you would have to do competent in your oral, and then you'll get a certificate of competency, which is available via the portal and email, and the practice certificate will be available in the portal if requested in an original application via email. Certificates are no longer supplied as hard copies via the mail, so everything's done online. There's some links there to get some more help. Hopefully, the website and everything's pretty intuitive, but again, you run into dramas. Angeline and the team are more than happy to help you. So, ma'am, the reason why here is really to sit your ticket and go through exactly what it is. Well, the first thing is as well, what is the actual meaning of the role? What's the legislative responsibility you'll be exercising as the MEM of an underground coal mine other than coal here in New South Wales? Well, it's spelled out in Schedule 10 of the 2022 WHS regs, Mines and Petroleum regs, in Part 425. So the statutory function of mining engineering manager is to develop, supervise, these are the key words, develop, supervise, monitor, and review. And that's the mining engineering standards and procedures forming part of the mining operations at the mine. If you read our documents, it goes into a little more exactly what the function involves. So that's to assess, understand, apply, monitor all relevant parts of the safety management system. I mean, you are the statutory person responsible for the SMS, basically. Source and apply current knowledge in the management of work health and safety. So that's that whole continual development. We explore this a lot in the orals, but we're looking to see that you keep abreast of latest changes in technology. We've all seen a lot happen in the last few years, regarding proximity detection, managing fire on mobile plant. I mean, there's been a whole host of developments. So we're looking at you continually to keep abreast of that, and then ultimately using the hierarchy of controls to implement these higher order controls as they become available to you. We're looking at a lead, and that's those associated non-technical skills we spoke about. Develop, apply, and monitor risk controls. So that's basically continue to monitor them, as we've spoken about, and it says in the ledge. Maintain the currency of standards and procedures. Implement training, instruction, assessment of workers, including any supervisors. Because really, it's supervisors that are the eyes and ears for you on the ground. That the SMS that you've agreed to, that your mind's operating on, it's the supervisors that are the eyes and ears that make sure it's actually being enforced. Because so many of the controls we rely on need administration to be effective, and that's where your supervisors are so critical. Facilitate work health and safety consultation, coordination, cooperation activities, investigate incidents, conduct and monitor workplace inspections, which you're providing evidence of in your portfolio. Report to the mine operator any deficiencies or significant deviations from the safety management system, and finally, provide supervision of and direct supervision of mining operations. And we actually have a definition around the different types of supervision and what they all mean on our website. So we've been on a long journey as a regulator regarding blueprinting. You'll see the whole framework, etc., in our exams on our websites. We've done an enormous amount, and it's basically to ensure that our examination process is as transparent as possible to applicants. It speaks about 8 different competencies in there. We're still on a journey with that as a regulator. I don't want to get caught up too much in it. I've simplified it a lot here in this as we'll go through, just because it is pretty complicated and pretty wordy, our documentation, and there's actually a review going on at the moment about how we can actually simplify it a little more. So don't get, as I said at the start of this, don't get too caught up in the blueprinting. Just follow what we go through here today. Essentially, the idea of the blueprinting is that we're going more down the RTO path of you being either deemed competent or not competent in some specific aspects of the exam, and then when you go, if you fail certain aspects, well, you'll just be then further on tested against those specific aspects, not against the whole exam, which is really good. It means that, for example, you pass all the legislation, but you fail on some technical matter, then next time around in the oral or in a written exam, we would just test you on that specific aspect that you failed on. So it makes it a bit quicker and easier for you. It's more applicable, I think it's going to be for the oral exams rather than the written. But we'll go into that in a little more detail later on when I talk about the structure of the written exam. So these are the 8 aspects of the blueprinting. Basically, everything that doesn't relate to either your technical knowledge and skills, your understanding of the legislation, and the management of those old ants aspects and dealing with various scenarios. Anything outside of that, you're pretty much going to deal with in the portfolio aspect of the application. So that's what I'm trying to simplify it for you, because it is pretty. It's a pretty intense document to read. So this is a little bit different. We need our documentation slightly updated because on the application, this is a little bit different to what's on the application. So we met as a panel. Jason was before you were on the panel, but we spoke about it, how we can make these written exams as simple as possible. So our exam process is actually a little different to, say, even the open cut quarry process. That's a 4-hour exam. We think you only need a 3-hour exam, which is sufficient, particularly because we have the orals as well. So when it talks about legislation, the main. So this is a pretty critical slide. I want to make sure this comes across to all you guys. So we've got these blacked out, these bold parts here for the. So we all know about the Explosives Act and the regs, and 2187, and we've also got or the additional regs, but the main ones I want to do are these bold ones. So AS 4326, the Australian Dangerous Goods Code, and the Australian Explosives Code. So they are actually legislated Australian standards and codes. They're legislated in the Explosives Act and regs. So therefore, we can ask questions on those. So please familiarise yourself with those. We've got WHS Act and their regs, and then we've got the WHS Mines and Petroleum Sites Acts and regs to be tested against as well. So there's a fair bit of legislation you're going to have to familiarise yourself with, and it's a big effort. Yeah, Jason on here, he's got his ticket. He knows what's involved. It's a lot of work. So please make sure you set aside the time to really digest that legislation. So technical stuff, look, anything you get asked around technical questions, you really have been exposed to, hopefully you've been exposed to in your career to date. So the technical questions aren't there to trip you up or anything else. It's there to just see that, so we're a bit unique in the metallurgical space versus coal. Coal mines are typically larger, these bulk commodities assets. If you're at a little mine, say, Mineral Hills gets going again, or I'm sure Jason will be able to talk about, the start up to Mingley, you're at a little narrow vein place and you're holding the ticket, but you're everything. You're the ventilation engineer. You're basically the geotech engineer. You may get an outside consultant that comes every 6 weeks to help you here and there, but essentially you could be it at a mine site once you have this ticket. And we don't want people holding these tickets that are just empty suits, that are just doing what they're told to by some third-party consultant. We expect you to be able to actually understand all the implications of why you make decisions and be able to push back on any third parties that tell you why you should do certain things at your mine. So that's why we're testing these technical abilities, to just make sure that you can operate independently of needing outside advice. The questions we will ask are pretty basic. Again, there's all questions you should have come across in your career up to date. So mine planning and design, and you could be asked that about open cut and underground, because this ticket does allow you for open cut as well. The open cut stuff, it should be pretty straightforward. Underground, so we expect you to be familiar with all major mining methods. So basically any sort of well-regarded or mining method that you're likely to see here in Australia, we expect you to have an understanding of. We don't expect you to have actually worked in any of those mines or anything, but we expect you to actually understand the method and the pros and cons of that method. Ventilation, clearly it's a vital part of managing a mine. We expect you to know how a ventilation system works. Geotech, we understand you're going to have third-party or internal support around geotech issues, but you have the statutory function, the ground and strata management plan. So we expect you to have a good understanding of geotech issues and how they relate to a mine. Surveying, well, we've got Giorgio here. I don't think he was at Olympic Dam at the time when they had their connecting headings fatality. We obviously had the Gretley fatality that was due to a surveying error. There's been lots of other instances I know about my career from, for example, like Lake Argyle. They were out a couple of meters on their survey. So that's something you will definitely have to think about on a mine site, and we expect you to understand the basics of surveying. Finally, the TRGs and NDGs and safety alerts bulletins we publish. So they're not legislated as such, but they provide you a good background to these issues and what we're looking for. So they're worth reading over. They're all on our website. Some of them are a little dated. We're actually going through a process right now of updating them, but definitely MDG 15. I expect, go and read that. Go and read our ventilation control plan, TRG. We also have one on operating diesel engines underground. There's a number of them there, but please go and have a look at those, and that'll just help you refresh your memory around these technical issues. regarding these old answers, human competencies, as already spoken about, it's part B and the oral and the portfolio where they'll be considered. So they're really the three components. So there's a lot around the blueprinting, but when you're looking for what you're going to be deemed competent in, really just come back to this slide 35. That's ultimately really what you need to worry about. And when it comes to the technical, we'll go and actually the answer to all these questions. So in the anything to do with human competencies and these technical matters, when you're answering the question, the answer isn't I'll call up a consultant and get them to come and do a risk assessment for me and tell me what to do. Like, we're expecting you to actually answer the question. So this is a new requirement for the change to be approved by the competency board. So basically, you have to sit your ticket all in the 1 year. So yeah, you'll get a second oral. So you get the oral, and then you get a second oral, and then if you fail that second oral, and all has to be done in 1 year, you'll have to go back and start from the start again. So the written examinations are held as part of the process of second. Yep. So all this we've sort of really covered. It's closed book. Each question we marked competent, not yet competent. So as I said, we're going down that RTO path of competent, not yet competent. But as a general guide, like the mechanical guys, when they went through their process, and the quarry managing guys, typically it ends up being a 6 out of 10 type mark for any of these competencies is a pass, and that'll be the same for us. I expect occasionally there will be what's called an essential competency, an essential question. So you must get 100%. I'll tell you now that that's not happening in this current exam. I can tell you that right now. So I couldn't imagine we'll ever do that. Subject matter identified as compulsory for so essential. Look, I won't get too caught up in all this, these essential competencies, because it's all coming from the blueprinting that we're simplifying a lot for us all today. So don't get too stressed about this. The main thing is there's those three aspects we've already spoken about, and you'll be deemed competent and not yet competent, and that's it. And it'll be around about a 6 out of 10 type mark. So this is the re-examination process. Required to sit during 3-year period and start with a new application. All right, okay. So you can, if you fail, you can opt for a resit, but it has to be within 3 years of having failed the original exam. And then you must be deemed competent in all written exams. So that's parts A and B to progress the oral exam. Now, we've simplified that. So on our current application, it's out of date because it talks about a part A and a part B as two separate exams. We've just combined all that, so it's just one exam at the moment. So we're just trying to simplify it as much as we possibly can for you guys. So yeah, in total, you get 3 hours and 10 minutes. There's 6 sections, so each one has 10 marks each in part A, and then they're about 60 marks, and then part B, which is the old ants aspect, and the technical, it's 40 marks, and there's 3 sections. So obviously the part B is essentially continued on in the oral. So some technical questions, types, examples. Hopefully you guys have got previous exams up there on the website. You've had a look at those, but I'm just trying to give you some more feel for what the sort of basic technical questions are. So question, what type of stress is most affected by the sloping sequence? Answer, abutment stress. And next one here, why would an underground mine have a mine local grid and simply using MGA 94? So, we're just looking for a general understanding of how surveying works. And I've got a couple of answers here. Orientation of the ore body, ease of the coordinate numbers, obviously have these huge numbers versus having smaller ones, and then the Z plane, the RL being relative to sea level. So that might be a typical answer you might give to a question like that. Yeah, so candidates must be able to demonstrate an intermediate understanding of the relevant technical matters that relate to the health and safety of workers. And we've already gone through all that. Now, these are just some for you guys to reference. As I said, you got the PDF of this so you can look at it all later, but these are just little sections of legislation to just give you a little bit more color and feel for the types of technical matters that could be asked. But basically, it's something, any technical matter, really you're going to be coming into day to day at your current mine site. So it may be worth going and have a chat with surveyors on site or the geotech engineers, reviewing your ground and strata management plans, etc., and your vent control plan, just to get a bit of an update in your head, just to get a refresher on these technical matters. Now, I've actually got this as the title ANTS, associated non-technical skills. It's not actually technically true because we're not calling it that anymore, but ultimately what we're looking for, we're going to pose various scenarios to you. So it might be a truck rollover, for example, and look to see how you would manage that incident. One of the good management tools I've seen, I'm not recommending, we're not saying you must do this, but is to follow this sort of sequential process of plan what you're going to do and then do. So devise what the solution is, have a systematic aspect to it, check so to confirm that the actual outcomes have occurred according to the plan, and then standardize the solution. So then ultimately look, what are the learnings and how can you incorporate that so it doesn't happen again. I spoke about whatever you say, it must comply with legislation, though you not be directly tested, for a section number or whatever. But as I said at the start, whatever your solution is, it must actually comply with legislation. So though you are not being tested directly for legislation, unless you sort of acknowledge how you respond to the incident or the issue needs to comply with the ledge. So a couple of examples, some legislative questions. So who we got here? So an underground mine plans to develop a new mine entry. What must the mine operator submit to the regulator prior to its development? So that'd be obviously HRA. And this question is good because it just gives you a little more feel for how we look to mark. So when must a mine report an unintended vehicle rollover as a dangerous incident? So the answer is only if the vehicle is 1,000 kilos or greater in weight. In example 2, note the key point of 1,000 kilos or greater in weight. Simply stating any rollover will not generate full marks. So we're looking to see how much you've learned the legislation. Basically, you would still be deemed competent for that one question if you said rollover, but to get the full marks, you'd need to answer it completely. Here's some useful abbreviations for you. You can go back through this later when you get the PDF, but they are pretty useful. They're all accepted little abbreviations we use for any legislation. To be honest, though, I doubt that you'll actually have to be quoting legislative clauses and sections in your exam. I can't really anticipate that happening. You may want to, in an answer, say as per this clause. You're welcome to do that in an answer, but we don't typically ask for you, or we definitely don't ask for you to say under what section of legislation requires you to produce a principal hazard management plan or whatever. We don't. We're more testing for your understanding rather than knowing where every section of every bit of legislation lives. So here's some tips. We have study groups. Yep, they can be useful. Go through the previous papers. Time management is a big one. So the written exams, 100, marked out of 100. So, and I'll have the marks for each question on there. So I think that allows for whatever it was, 1.8 minutes for each mark. So, you'll be able to allocate your time accordingly. Everyone here's done enough exams. I think they're pretty familiar with how to structure their time for an exam. We encourage use of doc points and acronyms. It's all online, so we haven't discussed that quite yet. But so during COVID, it sort of accelerated the whole online thing, obviously, for everyone, and we're no different. Tertiary educations accept accept these online exams now, or written exams being done online. So we use some software. It monitors you. You get your camera on so we can see if you're talking to someone else, and the microphone's on, etc. You'll be asked to show your room before the exam. So you now have the option of doing the exam online. We've trialed it now, definitely for the quarry manager's ticket, and that went really well. We got some good feedback from it all. So yeah, we absolutely encourage you guys to sit the exam online. It will make it easy for you to have to travel. In saying that, if you insist and you want it done in person, then we'll make that happen for you. It's a similar story for the orals. If you want to do the oral in person, we'll make that happen, but we can absolutely do it online. That's probably our preference, particularly for the orals. But if you want to make it in person, we'll happily do that. Look, we'll accept any recognised jargon in your answers. I've got here, I've got a Canadian or whatever says scoop tram or bugger. That's an example, but any sort of recognised mining language you use, we'll happily accept. So don't stress too much. This is not about trying to trick you. Like we do ask multiple choice questions. You will be asked in a series of multiple choice questions, but they're not there to try and deliberately trick you. I'm sure we've all had them before, like it's and or this and like different spellings and all this sort of stuff with the distractor type questions from that beyond what the actual answer is. So that's not the intent of how we want this exam to work, and we're not here to try and trick you at all. I just see some stuff. Sorry, Toby. I just see some stuff in the chat here, and I've been negligent to look at it. Hi Xavier, will it be possible to get a copy of more previous exams that are available online? I think there's 2 online. I'll take that on notice, and I'll see if I can get some more. Toby, a written exam actually wasn't actually run last year because we just didn't have an applicant. Simple as that. So we do have, I think, the one from 2 years ago. But look, I'll see if I can find some more for you. Okay. Yeah. Answer the question that's been asked. This is a big problem we run into a lot with these written exams. We've intentionally made this written exam this year tighter, so there's less long form questions. I'm happy to reveal all this to you, where you got to give long form type answers. They're more shorter answers, and I think that helps because naturally, whenever you sit these exams, you're a bit nervous, and you want to make sure you cover everything. So you write a lot, and we're getting all these answers that had lots of stuff that was irrelevant or invoking all these corporate processes and things. So to keep it tighter, please just really stay on topic, use dot points, and we've deliberately asked questions now for them so you provide a shorter answer. So it makes it ultimately easier for you guys. Yeah, keep answers concise. Yeah, avoid corporate speak. We've got a fair bit of that in the past. Just answer the exact question that we're asking. Don't go into how you're going to form a committee and they're going to come back to you, and then you're going to get some consultant, and then you've got whatever internal processes you use in your business and various flow charts, etc. We don't need to see all that. Look, this is a big one, and it's particularly prevalent we see a lot as an issue in the oral exams, particularly and I've already spoken about this, but it is a big problem. It happens across all the other competencies as well, where they just say, look, I'm just going to get someone else to come in and tell me what to do, and then I'll do what they say. We are looking for you to take ownership of the situation whenever a situation is presented for you. Of course, in part of an answer, you can say, hey, we're going to do a risk assessment. I'm going to involve these people, etc. But ultimately, we're seeing what you will do and how you will manage a situation. So the written exam online, we've already spoken about. Just some bits and pieces. So you'll be monitored. The software will lock out keyboards, etc. So it's got really tight time frames, like you're 3 hours and 10 minutes, and it will actually lock out, etc. They'll be all done. It'll be all laid out in the same way that you'll get the PDF ones on our website. They'll be laid out the same way, but just online, basically.
Xavier,
Hello.
can I quickly talk about the online exam?
Of course.
All right. Hi, guys. My name's Angeline. I'm from the Resource Regulator Mining Competencies team. You might have dealt with me sending emails. So just quickly want to touch on about the online exam because I managed the one that we had in the Query Manager. Because of the success, Xavier had decided to put his hand up to have his exam be the next guinea pig. All right, so we want to do it online. It's going to be almost the same format as the written paper, except we won't be asking you to do drawing because it's not possible for you guys to do drawings on an online exam. You just need to have sufficient stable internet connection in the appropriate location, so not at Macca's. There'll be no change in the fees for the candidates. You'll need to install a Google Chrome extension on the computer that you'll be working on. And I'll also take you through an induction to assist you with installing the extension and also some mock exam questions for you to get a feel of the online exam environment. So there'll be a couple of questions and different type of questions like multiple choice, fill in the blank, true or false questions, or essay questions, and you'll have plenty of space to type your answer in. Feedback from previous candidate who had set the exam online had commented that it was easier for them to type the answers compared to writing the answers on paper. So we took that on and we decided that that was really good feedback. So as an online exam, we'll have human supervisors looking at you. You'll be needed to show your video and audio to the human supervisor at all times. There'll be the software that we'll use will lock down the keyboard, so you can only access what's in the Google Chrome extension. And if you lose connection, your exam will be extended by the time loss, so there'll be no disadvantage. And yeah, exam papers will be laid out in the same way as previous papers. You have plenty of blank space to type in your answer, and we'll set it up with sufficient time for you to adjust to by typing as well. Okay, so closer to the exam date, whoever is sitting for the exam, I'll have an induction session with you to help you install the stuff. So don't be too worried about it. It's easier than you think. Okay, thank you, Xavier.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, the other good comment we got back from the candidates that completed the online exam was, if you make mistakes or whatever, you can just go back through the different questions and just change your answer quite easy. It's a lot easier than when it's done in a handwriting. All right. So you got 10 minutes at the start of the exam just to read all the questions and understand them. Yeah, what we'll actually do this year, one of the lessons we've learned as examiners, so if it says, provide 5 items, I don't know, or name 4 principal hazards or whatever, we'll only give you space for 4. But often these sort of questions, we ask for 4 of this or 5 of that or whatever, and we'll get like 8 or 9 answers back. So please, when it says 5 or 4 or whatever it is, just provide those. We've already spoken about keeping things in point form. If you're asked, I'm just trying to go through this. If you're asked how you would manage a hazard on site, then describe both the assessment of the hazard and the system you would implement, what you do in practice. It's really what we've been speaking about. Like, we're actually asked to see what you will do. If you're asked, what is your understanding of legislative clause? Would you not want a word for a copy of the clause we've spoken about? We just want to know what it means in terms of applying the legislation practically on your site. And if you're asked how you would implement a legislative clause system, if you were asked how you would implement a legislative clause, then describe the system you would develop and the process to implement. So, all this we've pretty much already covered. So you'll have a text box there on the web page. There's no limit to you can type, identify question or part number by typing it in. So that's all pretty straightforward. You will not be able to provide drawings Look, yeah, we don't have any problem with you guys using all these concepts. I mean, one we refer to oftenly here at work is the Nertney wheel, these safety sort of concepts. That's fine, but only because that informs how you come up with an answer, and that's that plan, do, the process we talked about before. But ultimately, we still need to see the actual answer, like what you would do as the manager. So yeah, here's a nice little tip. Well, I guess all the situations, this is for these human behavior type things. Typically, the questions we ask have actually, we've all experienced this before as managers, or at least one of the panel members have actually seen that issue at a mine site before. So whatever questions are asked, they're born in reality, and it's things you could definitely anticipate seeing in your career. We recommend, yeah, for the orals, that you do some mock orals. So practice, practice, practice. Try and get some couple of experienced people on site to ask you some questions. They're typically either of a technical nature, or you'll be confronted with a bullying and harassment situation, for example, like how you're going to manage that. Candidates need to demonstrate a structured approach. So that's what we've already spoken about pretty clearly in the answer. So obviously evaluating the problem, how you're going to manage it, actually managing it, putting it into implementation, and then how you update the system so that that incident doesn't happen again. This need for benchmarking. So it's a good example. So for example, we've asked questions before in the oral about fire on mobile plant, and then how you would manage fire on a mobile plant at your mine. Now, us, the regulator, we've published a lot. There's a great lot of around fire on mobile plant, and there's a lot of discrepancy how different mines do it. But is a fair bit of benchmarking out there that you can look at. So that'd be a good example of doing some benchmarking and just getting yourself aware of the recent incidences and the TRGs that we've put out as a regulator, because I think that'll give you a fair few clues as sort of the type of scenarios, etc. You could likely to face in the orals. So the questions, they go from 30 to 60 minutes. There is a fair bit of variability because we get various answers from the candidates. Sometimes we allow for some prompting, try and prompt the candidate to go in a certain direction, but we don't obviously want to be prompting too much. The more we have to prompt, it ultimately, the lower the mark you're going to get if we have to prompt you too much to try and extract the right, an answer out of you, or to keep you onto the topic in the actual question that was originally posed. In the oral exams, there's 3 or 4 members of the examination panel. We're lucky because we've got a good panel now. So, for example, Rian, if Clive was on the panel, would take him off. He wouldn't be on for yours, for example. So we've got a little bit of flexibility there to deal with conflicts of interest and stuff, because that inevitably happens because we're such a small sector. Yeah, typically it relates to safety practices and controls and systems here in New South Wales. The technical knowledge questions will really relate to practical things you're likely to experience or have to question here in New South Wales for mines, but it'll be across any mining method. It could be anything, any type of mining method you'd experience here or in Australia. Yeah, the questions are basically deemed competent or not yet competent, and you will get some feedback from the competency team. So yeah, I can pretty much guarantee that you will be asked a emergency question, emergency type scenario question. So these are a couple here just to get you thinking. Remember, they may be open cut questions, not just underground. So don't limit your thinking to just underground. Explosives are also a good one. It doesn't take too much ingenuity to think that, for example, the recent incident we had in WA, where we had the truck catch fire and ultimately the big bomb go off a couple of months ago. You know, explosives are a big issue. We've had Beirut happen. That caused a lot of thinking within our group after that. Here is the regulator. We did a lot of work after that incident. So explosives are definitely a big part of the type of questions that you could be asked on. So make sure you familiarize yourself with exactly how they should be stored and handled and used and maintained. And this was that bit I was talking about where the Part B and the orals straddle the legislation. This is probably the biggest part of legislation that you'll deal with is reporting an incident and the legislative requirements around reporting. So yes, you're not going to be asked any specific clauses or anything else, but you will be. We do expect you to follow the intent of the legislation in your answers. Yep, you'll receive an email to your nominated email address in the portal regarding your exam results. We've spoken about that. So it's basically the same as the written. You can also get some feedback. If we see a common issue across all the candidates, or if there's sort of overwhelming demand, we can absolutely have a feedback session, maybe organised. Existing candidates, see you get 3. Angelina, are you able to just give a little bit more colour around this requirement, because I thought this had changed. 3 attempts in 3 years. After 3 years, restart application process and meet new criteria. Are you there, Angelina? Are you able to just give us a bit more?
Yep. So yeah, we should have taken this out. So it's just for the existing candidate who had applied before July 2022. They still get the 3 attempts from 3 years. But if you have put in your application or start a new examination process, which is the written exam, you are the new candidate, so you can only have 1 go at the written exam and 2 goes at the oral exam, provided that you had failed the first oral and that you have meet certain criteria to be able to sit for the second oral.
Okay. Now, Toby, your question. Yes, the oral exam can be online. As I said at the start, happy to do it online. That's fine. Or if they really want to do it in person, we'll make it happen. Typically, we do it in Dubbo. It's probably the most central place for everyone to meet. Barriers to success. So yeah, inadequate knowledge of the subject area, not applying the legislative framework. That is a big one. So I was trying to think. I remember the MEM at Broken Hill. He once asked me, like, you got any advice, Xavier? Like, I remember when I did my ticket many years ago. I studied. This is the hardest thing I've ever studied. Like, it was a lot of reading and a lot to take in. And I actually, I don't know if this is going to help any of you, but I actually got my guitar and I actually basically I memorized the legislation to like a melody, and that was how because it is a recognized memory technique. You do remember better if you learn something to a melody or music, try and make it musical. So that'd be my tip. But there's a lot of work, there's a lot of study you got to do to memorize all that legislation. That is probably that's one of the harder aspects, particularly for any applicants that are outside of New South Wales, because you're not living the legislation every day in your job, so that will make it tougher. But none of this is insurmountable. It can all be done, but you really have to put the time in. Not thoroughly reading the question and not answering what has been asked. The poor structure, long-winded versus structured dot points. Like, there's plenty of time in this exam. Like, we are not here to test you on time. You're gonna have I think a lot of you will probably finish the exam early. We're not here to put you under time pressure. and we're not here to force you into giving us long-winded answers. You're quite happy to take shorter answers. That we're expecting short answers to the questions. Yeah, poor timekeeping. So have a system to keep in time, and incomprehensible answers. We've received a few of those over the years. But look, main thing is just do the work and get some experienced people on your mind. So it's not actually on there, but get some experienced people on your mind side to pose you some questions. The Part B component in the written exam is probably not as intense as the oral, but you're going to be asked, one or two emergency management, dealing with a situation type questions. There may be a technical component as well. Like, I don't know, it could be, for example, you're bogging, you got a raise that you raise boring, and it's all held up, and you know there's a heap of water behind it. There's this big inrush risk. You know, how are you going to go about managing it? So there's a sort of technical component, but then there's an ants type component to it as well. So please get some experienced people on your site to just try and pose a few of those questions to you, and really flesh out how you would go about responding to it, but also in a systematic way. For the oral exam, as I said, we're happy to provide a separate briefing session before the oral exams if you guys want it. Happy to do that. But finally provide a clear, tangible answer instead of invoking corporate processes. So I think you guys are getting a pretty good theme here around the sort of answers we want. Finally provide a concise answer. So this goes for both the oral and the written. Deferring decision makers to others. So we've added actually in our marking criteria a component around body language because it is important. I have to say, whenever we've done orals, every candidate we've had, this has never been a problem at all. But we do look like for people that can project themselves and project what they're saying confidently. As I said, that's never been a problem in the past. I don't anticipate it to be a problem with any of you guys. Inadequate knowledge of the subject area, that has definitely been a problem, particularly for candidates if they can't demonstrate any sort of knowledge of other mining methods, etc. You could be asked a question about any major mining method and how you'd react to a certain situation. The legislative framework in managing a scenario. Look, we've already spoken a lot about that with the written exam. It's exactly the same rules as that Part B in the written exam. Relying on contractors and consultants to substitute for your lack of knowledge. We've spoken about not prepared to answer, not prepared or able to question the opinion of technical experts. So look, ultimately, when you hold these tickets, your statutory function, you're not there to be an empty suit. Yeah. You're there to be able to ask hard questions and push back on advice. And that'll happen time and time again in your career. I'm sure you've probably done it already in your careers, push back at third parties that have said you should do something, etc. So I'm sure you're already doing that right now, but we will test that you've got the ability to push back and not just accept answers. Too much prompting. Look, we understand you're going to be nervous in an oral exam. We're not, and you can get carried away and get off a question. All that's fine. We anticipate we'll have to prompt you and bring you back occasionally, and that's okay. But if it's just continually having to prompt you to try and get an answer, that definitely doesn't help you in the oral exam. Not demonstrating adequate leadership and behaviour in those ants component, in the old ants components, but when you're presented with a scenario, those scenario type based things, as I said, you'll have some experienced people on site that you can get to test you on that, and they'll give you some feedback. So feedback, you will get, basically for the orals, you will get a brief feedback form if you ask for it. You will get, we do develop an examination report. Basically what happens is once the exam is finished, the 3 panel members will sit and consult with each other, go through their notes, and then develop basically a little report just detailing if you're competent, not yet competent, and the reasons as to why. And you can request that upon receiving your marks. All right, finally, I think that's about it. So I'm ready to take any other additional questions if there are any there.
All right, I'm going to stop recording so you guys can show your face and ask questions for Xavier. All right, thank you.